to combat issues of ghost workers,
Yeah.
where civil servants that actually don't exist were being paid salaries, and then of course the money was just siphoned by politicians and maybe civil servants alike. So,
Yeah.
and the IPPIS was now introduced, so it's just like an integrated payroll system, and it's taken long to have all civil servants key into this scheme, and the federal government is saying, look, for us to pay you salaries, you have to be any ministry or any MDA that wants to be paid salaries. We have to pay salaries under the IPPIS, and so they've sort of been staggering it, and so but this is coming up now because Buhari has said that look, he's given an October 31 deadline
Yes.
for this to occur, and then if it doesn't happen, and any MDA that is caught not connected or integrated to the IPPIS will be paid salaries, and that's where ASU comes in, our good old ASU.
Yes.
So ASU is saying that look, we are independent, right? They are independent. So because we are independent, in quote, we don't want we have some kind of autonomy. Our position is that it is against the principle of autonomy. According to ASU, our members are saying that they stand by their position. Our position is that IPPIS is against the principle of autonomy as established by law, and that to that extent, our members do not see any reason to enroll in the IPPIS. For now, nobody has called us for any negotiation. So,
What are
you
we
see,
negotiating
I don't
here,
know. So
please?
the thing with ASU, and this is why sometimes people look at ASU and just think that sometimes they can be a bunch of troublemakers. Like you sort of look for every reason to always want to have a showdown,
Showdown.
with the government. And what is wrong with IPPI is the federal government pays your salaries anyway.
Yes.
Yes, you're sort of independent or you have some kind of autonomy in the way these universities are being governed.
Yeah.
But vice chancellors and pro chancellors and all of them, they are still appointed by the federal government. So, whatever, however way you want to put it, universities are owned by the federal government. So, for the federal government pays your salaries, so you have to fall under the rules, of the game. And what was even more annoying about this whole thing was the statement that the representative went on to say that towards the end, it says the IPPIS, which is an initiative of Mrs. Okonjo-Iweala, has its roots in the World Bank political tools used to further subjugate less developed countries. Like, what the heck?
All right, let's actually address some of their concerns because I mean they've highlighted a few concerns. One of which is the inefficiency of registering their members on the IPPSIS portal.
Yeah.
The next is delay payment of the salary for October. So the president has given October 29 as the deadline for this, and they're saying, well, they're not even ready, and so it means that their members are going to be paid late. Is that enough justification to reject the whole process?
No, because this is something that has been ongoing for years. Like I said, this started, I think, in 2007,
Yeah.
even. So that's over a decade ago. So it's been ongoing, and they've basically been rolling it out in phases. So the government is saying, look, I want to believe that this is something that they've mandated them to do for some time now. So the only thing Buhari has come out to say publicly is that the October 31 deadline is sacrosanct. So perhaps, I mean, not speaking for the president, perhaps I want to believe that circulars or so may have been
In the
sent,
center.
to MDAs over the last few months, if not years, on this deadline. So this is only just making it public. So and rather than just try to showdown or have a showdown with the government, I mean, you can seek for an extension, exclusive extension for yourselves rather than just
Kick
threatening legal
against it.
suit and all of
All
that.
right, thank you very much indeed. Perhaps you're a part of ASU and you have a comment and you're listening to us. We'd love to hear from you because at the moment it just seems easy. Good development. Why are you kicking against it? What has the federal government done this time? Let us know on WhatsApp, on Twitter, and of course on YouTube as well.
All right, our next story this time around is from the Punch newspaper. Still sticking with the Punch for this one. 33 states cannot survive without federal allocation, is what the headline reads. According to the story, the federal accounts, according to nigeriastats.gov.ng, is the central pocket through which the three tiers of governments maintain their respective workforce and fund the development projects. Please share your thoughts according to this report as published by Budget.
Yeah, I haven't read the report in detail, but going by the news here, this is actually not you've always known this. There are very few states that have internally generated revenue, which can sustain their recurrent expenditure, not even talk of capital expenditure. So states in Nigeria still rely heavily.
Mm.
There's some 99% on handouts from the federal government for them to actually survive. So and this to me, you need to go to the heart of the problem here, and the issue is, you know I kind of think it's the way that the economy and the political economy of Nigeria is designed. It's designed such that there's so much concentration on the center, and so there's no incentive for states to basically try, look for other sources of revenue. So if you have a lazy state government that is not looking to expand its economy, its own local economy, then all the state governor just does is wait for federal handouts, secure their own security votes, and then pay salaries. And so for the economy is going as far as they're concerned. No, there's no incentive for businesses to set up in that state. There's no infrastructure projects going on. So people just wake up every morning and it's the same thing. And before 4 years is gone, and the governor has amassed as much wealth as he can through security votes and by other means, and that's it. So the only kind of presence you can have in states like that are federal presence.
Yeah.
So, and then if you're a state that maybe you're somewhere along the oil zone, then maybe the federal coffers have a lot more money to throw around, and maybe a lot more money to steal, in quote. So and so the only way states can now generate their own money is through internal generated revenue, which is basically just taxes. So, and then or maybe investment. So what I've always suggested, I've always preferred less concentration of powers to the federal, to the center, so that states can have laws that can spur businesses, or attract businesses to the economy, or industries to the economy. So today, what can a state do really? The only taxes states have, or leverage taxes have over industries, is personal income tax,
Yeah.
and that one is even federal.
All right. In this story, what was a bit worrying was that they mentioned some states and their sizes, despite the fact that they're not generating enough income internally. They have a high recurrent expenditure. So we look at states like Bayelsa, Ebonyi, we look at Sokoto, Jigawa, Yobe, and then we see the amount of money they're spending, despite the fact that they're not generating income internally. That's one. On the other hand, some people have called that for states that can, if you're not able to stand, why do we have so many states who are not able to stand on their own if the federal government is not feeding them? At the moment, we only have three states like that, and that's Lagos, Port Harcourt, and Rivers State. Sorry, Lagos, Rivers, and Akwa Ibom State.
Which is what Emma is indicating by her message on WhatsApp. She said, if as a state you cannot generate internal generated revenue (IGR), then why are you a state? What's stately about you? Is what she asked. As a governor, what are you offering? Essential questions there. This next message from Dami speaks about ASU.
Says if ASU is autonomous, that's good news. They should just be fully autonomous by sourcing their money and paying themselves autonomously. This is shameful coming from ASU. All right, thanks, Danny.
We move on to the next story, this time from this day newspaper. Finance Minister says, as Zainab Ahmed, she said that contrary to speculations that Nigeria is in a debt crisis, that it's not. It's that she described it as a revenue generating problem, a revenue generation problem. What is she implying exactly, and what are we missing in this message?
If this is rap music, you call it wordplay. Say it's some kind of wordplay.
Semantics.
So this is just pure wordplay, really. um, a debt crisis would only occur if you have a revenue problem, basically. So that's where you have a debt crisis. So America today borrows over 100% of their GDP. Their debt to GDP ratio is over 100%. So, but America is not in a debt crisis. Likewise, other super economic powers around the world, mostly their debt to GDP ratio is as close to 100%, if not over. And that's what she's alluding to. What she's saying here is that, look, if you based on debt to GDP ratio, Nigeria is not in a debt crisis because we're still on that 30% or on that 20% or something like that. But you're in a debt crisis when you can't pay your debt. and you can't pay your debt if you don't have revenue. So I really don't understand. For a minister to come out and say things like this, you start to wonder, like, what exactly, what exactly are you fooling? I mean, like, are you really? Do you really understand, what this is all about, right? Because if you don't have revenue, then you can't, save enough money or secure,
Mm,
or put some money aside
mm,
to service your debt. The reason why companies go insolvent is not because they don't have assets or because they don't have, properties. They go bust because they don't have cash to pay their immediate debt.
mm.
So once those debt crystallizes and they can't pay, the creditors just pull the rug and that's it.
Maybe
So
maybe that's what she's even saying. I mean, just to put it in perspective, let's not be alarmist at this point, because let's just put it in perspective. We have a revenue generation problem. The debts we see, most of the debts are still being procured. They're still fresh. Implementation largely hasn't taken place yet, so we probably wouldn't jump the gun to say, okay, we're having problems paying back our debt because it's not ripe yet. Wouldn't you say that might be what she's
yeah, so
trying to
in
postulate?
theory, right, it's there's no debt crisis, but don't try to, like, that's why I said it was wordplay. Don't try to equate that, oh, we have a revenue crisis, not a debt crisis.
Mm,
So in theory, we might not have a debt crisis, but the reason why people are screaming or are worried, they don't have to wait till you have a debt crisis for them to start shouting. People are worried because they are seeing that your debt service to revenue, it's in some cases over 50%, or sorry, over 40%. So people are worried and they're like, look, at some point there's not going to be money to, you know for the critical projects that we need in Nigeria. After all, 2020 budget now, our debt service is even more than the capital expenditure.
mm,
And so that's what people have been worried about. The reason why it's like that is because you can't really generate much revenue.
Mm-hmm.
Besides, last year you couldn't collect up to 60% of your revenue targets. So it's even a lot more dire situation. So that's why people are jittery and worried. So
Yes.
I can understand, trying to, play a bit of politics around it, or what play, like I said earlier. But please, yes, we're not in a debt crisis, but if we continue this way, we will be in one soon enough.
all right.
Thank you.
Let's take a few messages.
Yinka says, unfortunately, the bulk of the states generating nothing are those singing praises for Mr. President. So facing the real issue of scrapping them if they ain't worth a state like is like screwing them off, says Yinka.
All right. PC sent in this message. It says, I've said it before, but I'm saying it again. States should be given 6 months to 12 months to achieve self sustainability, after which they merge some of them.
Good
It
idea.
almost sounds like running like a company.
Neka on Twitter has a question. So we have only 4 states in Nigeria: Lagos State, River State, Akwa Ibom State, and State of Emergency.
I don't want to play.
Yeah,
Messages
Neka.
on YouTube since we're using wordplay today.
Mhm.
Moluka Sanda says, Godre, your head is there. Thank you. Some people will just carry cutters and start bamboozling Nigerians. Sheldon said we should be worried though. A revenue generation problem means that you have a debt crisis. If you cannot generate enough revenue to service your debt, you have a debt crisis.
Just what
That's what she said.
what you're saying.
Basically.
Thank you very much.
Ogo, what are your thoughts regarding the president renaming the nation's communication ministry to the Federal Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy? I don't want to rush to say, okay, since they're going into the ICT sector, possibly they probably, I might be looking at social media soon, maybe. But just clarify this, just to allay all the fears.
Like renaming you Valentine. Wow.
So the next question I'll ask you is, what do you want? What are you going to
So
ask?
look, man. Well, according to the president, I mean, they have every right to do this. He says that this is in line with global standards or global best practice, or however he puts it. My only concern here, Valentine, is when politicians start to add, some new nomenclatures to what currently exists, there's always something behind it, and you got to be worried. And that's what I'm really not sure about, because when you add digital economy, then that to me suggests that they're now looking at how to start to regulate the digital space, be it digital media, be it fintech, a lot of all these things that we're seeing now in the IT technology space. So
Yeah.
people in that area need to be worried now, because the government is closing in, not just in Nigeria, around the world. So when you say you're renaming Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy, then the regulation is coming in that sector. That's basically what this says to me. So now, and digital economy suggests that they will create portfolio for digital economy anyway, right? And then once you create portfolios for digital economy, then new legislation start to pop up, and the regulations start to pop up, and then they start to rain on these guys. So for companies or businesses in these industries, um, you have to now start to look at additional cost. Your growth trajectory can be impeded because now you have regulations around you, and then how you also harness, data to do a lot of your businesses. You have to be careful as well. So that is just my own concern. I really don't know. In Nigeria, whenever we have regulations and all these things, it's out there to either compete with you
Mm.
or to stifle your business. That it's not like all these regulations are always there to enhance your operations or your business. They mostly just put it out there to sort of like tax you extra. So
My
that's my concern.
my major concern, Ugo, is the fear for ease of doing business. We see right now. I checked out the new stats that was published by Bloomberg, giving putting New Zealand as number one, the best country to do business in,
Yeah.
ease of doing business. New Zealand, Singapore, Hong Kong, Denmark. But if you go down below the charts, Nigeria is rising. But is this going to make it? Is this going to improve the chances of us going higher up the ladder?
That's what I'm saying. I don't think so. I mean, without prejudice to how this will work, but I really don't think so. And let me tell you something interesting that they do in the West. Usually when you have new spaces coming up, especially in technology, they allow them, they give them years to sort of nurture and grow.
Mm.
So for example, the likes of Google, Amazon, Facebook, all these tech companies, they allow them grow for over a decade without regulations,
Yeah.
right? It just allow them grow, because when companies are starting up and creating new industries, you got to give them a bit of room and leeway to move around, because
Mm.
they're trying new things, they're doing things that haven't been done before. So you don't stifle them with regulations or taxes and things like that. So allow them, they nurture and they grow and they expand. When they now get mature, then regulations now starts to come in, because then there's a lot more consumer protection related issues and things like that, and of course data privacy and all. And then that's why you can see that legislations are now coming up. A lot of countries are now thinking, okay, these guys are getting too big, how do we now start to manage them?
Mm.
So that's how it works. But here it appears that they've just started seeing online okada, online this one, online that one. Wait, there's money here that we're not seeing.
We're not.
Somebody just comes up, arranges one proposal and sends to government and says, look, we need to rein in on these guys. If you start to tax them X amount, this is how much money we can bring into government coffers. And then from there, morphs into one, but we don't have any, the name of our ministry somehow, let's add digital into it.
Mm.
And that's how sometimes these things happen. And that's my concern. That's
All
my
right.
concern,
That's
really.
great.
And like you said, it affects ease of doing business negatively.
Thank you, Ugo. Tunde sent in a message. Tunde quickly says, a new digital economy is equal to new licensing opportunities, equal to new government revenue. Keep milking the cow without feeding it and nurturing it, and it will either die or be stunted.
All right, then Victor Silva says, I'm in the ICT realm. Hearing about the renaming and adding digital to the name gets me worried. Tech is about to get, by the government with regulations, about to get,
Stifled.
stifled, yes, by the government with regulations and so on.
And Rainmaker sent in this one. It says, we're in trouble. I just hope a lot of us know it yet. So when the University of Dons, who taught us or teaches the young generation, comes out to make public statements, you doubt their intellect and fear how the people are far from reality. The others, ministers and essays who are closer to power, they spew non-truths, is what is a legend, to sound woke in ignorance. Imagine the finance minister saying what she said. She does not know the debt problem. It just worries Rainmaker. And Dami says regulation is necessary, especially in a country where corruption flows through our blood. The Secretary and the CBN have done well. The SEC, he says, sorry, and CBN have done well, as they both have frameworks to allow fintechs grow while they watch what is safe.
All right, thanks for your comments. Keep them coming. We're trying to get through as many as possible this morning. Our next headline here is one that affected a number of commuters yesterday, Ugo. There was traffic, particularly for those who are going towards Berga or Tedola Bridge. And this is due to an accident, multiple accidents on Tedola Bridge, which unfortunately claimed two lives at the time of reporting and leaving several injured. Now, this day has this report about the accident involving 10 vehicles on the Tedala Bridge along Lagos Ibadan Expressway yesterday. The accident is said to have happened in Berger and involved a high capacity bus, which is lag bus,
Mm.
and an articulated truck carrying a container, a pickup van, and saloon cars.
Sad stuff, Ayo, and this is not the first time this is happening in the last 3 months. I
Yes,
think.
particularly
I
on
think
that bridge,
on
the
that bridge,
Tedala
exactly
Bridge.
that particular bridge, on September 20th, a diesel tanker fell off while driving the bridge. If you recall, the tanker carrying 33,000 liters of fuel driving was begging an accident, resulting in spillage at that time. And then I think, was it last year or 2 years ago, that there was one or major fire as well around there that burnt a lot of
Yeah, that
cars.
was the
Um,
tanker.
yeah,
Yeah, the
so
tanker spill.
so yeah, I don't know what it is about that bridge and how motorists drive. And the
Mm,
funny thing is that the traffic sort of narrows around there,
yeah.
so you don't understand. I don't understand why, especially all these buses or trailers,
Mhm.
either believe that that's when to step on the gas, because I think the road is also a little bit sneaky.
Mm.
So we have to be careful. I think maybe LASMA and Lagos State government authorities need to go in there and really see what exactly is causing it. They
Yes.
probably need a bit of traffic management in there,
Yes.
and that's something that we lack a lot in Nigeria, traffic management, because it's not just having roads and and having traffic lights and having LASMA guys controlling. There's a lot more to traffic management, and that's something that we need to pay a lot of attention to in Nigeria, and in Lagos especially, because Lagos is a huge city. So, and for a city like this, how people move around and drive, or how we even decide who should be a motorist in Nigeria is something that we need to look into. So a lot of all these bus drivers, sometimes you're driving and you see someone in the middle, and the guy is brushing his teeth, getting ready to, as his passengers are loading, and you're
In the
wondering, this is the
sleeping
guy
bag.
that is still going to drive drive you, and you're going to be side by side with him on the express. So we have to be very careful about these things, and so that we don't see another disaster on our hands.
Absolutely. I mean, when it's happened one too many times, then we need to find out the reason why. And but like you mentioned, perhaps have more traffic management officials put there or placed there. For those who were affected by the traffic yesterday, sincere apologies. I know for some it was horrendous.
Please add your names to your messages. As this one says, the number ends with 4550. It says, I do not know what's happening at your end, though, but if I can't leave my house early in the morning every day because trucks have blocked the Apapa Shuli Expressway, then the government is the worst in history for him.
Mm.
Really, bad, sad experiences for a lot of people who are in traffic right now, even listening to us. Ladile Johnson sent in a message, says, good morning, freshly pressed. Please, let's be optimistic. There is hope as long as there's a tunnel.
Amen.
One way or the other, things will get better.
Amen. Loud amen to that. All right, talking about things getting better, the Chief of Army Staff, Dr. Borotai, says the Army has engaged in spiritual warfare to counter Boko Haram propaganda. So let me break this down because it seems like the headline is a little misleading. A few weeks back, they talked about the Army engaging spiritual help to fight Boko Haram. However, when you read the details of this story, it talks about the fact that because terrorism is an ideological war, and
Mm.
it's for some people they're radicalized by some let me put the word fake religious movement, and saying that this is the way it should go. Extremists, yes, that's the word. And so that religious leaders have a role to play in terms of also helping to, so almost like a community approach to
Yeah.
dealing with terrorism. So just to clarify that, it's not like he's asking people to go for a crusade, let's have a crusade, to pray against this, as some people thought. But please kindly take us through this.
I think we got to be careful, how news headlines are
Absolutely.
casted here, because one thing that I've also learned is that a lot of people, especially on social media, don't click into this news. They just that headline is just all they see, and then
Mm-hmm.
they retweet it, and then and then it goes on and on and on and on. And like you clearly stated, all he was basically saying is that, in fact, I quote him: "We were involved in a joint seminar on spiritual warfare as an effective means against insurgency and other forms of restiveness. Boko Haram and the likes cannot be defeated by kinetic military warfare alone."
Alone.
So when you hear that spiritual warfare, so it sounds kind of like, oh, funny, and something that you can just laugh about. But what he's basically saying is that, look, these guys are, a lot of these battles are ideological,
Yes.
and ideological warfare is one of the most difficult one to win, especially when it has religious inclinations. And we've seen it with Al Qaeda and ISIS and all these guys. It's all religious. That's all that is driving it. So just want to
Religious
dominate,
extremism.
yeah, religious extremism, exactly. And want to just dominate the world, and then push our brand of religion across, religious extremism across the world, and things like that. And that can be a huge motivation for terrorists. So, and that's what I guess they're saying that they need to start to look at again. So it's not just battle on the field alone. You also have to go into that spiritual kind of warfare with them as well, so that you can also engage them on that field. So if somebody is saying that, look, we have to, our own religion suggests that we should maim people to dominate. You're going back saying, look, this same religion doesn't say we should maim people to dominate. It actually preaches peace.
Yeah.
So that is a different kind of warfare, and I guess that's what he's trying to say. So we got to be careful about how we cast this thing.
And it's not just in Nigeria this happens. All over the world, we're seeing that
Yeah.
there's a community approach to tackling terrorism beyond the use of force.
Yeah.
So we're now engaging religious leaders, engaging community leaders
Exactly.
to speak to those who they have a direct influence over. So this is actually a welcome development.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think Valentine himself, maybe he should just stop using that term, spiritual warfare, because people
Maybe
just don't
that's
see
the
it like
language
that.
that we
Yeah.
understand. We
Yeah.
see posters with
Everybody will
spiritual
just think
warfare.
charms.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And then
what's
even
here
some
is
of
you
these,
think charms.
even if you see church pastors too, they say spiritual warfare, want to kill them, die them,
Your
kill
mind just
everything.
go-
Yeah, so
go to
you
that.
got to be careful
The
about these
language.
things.
Thank you.
Iba sent in this one from Lagos. Says, want to learn in Nigeria. Please invite our Honorable Minister of Finance, Mr. Zainab, to the studio to explain her version. That Nigeria is not having a debt crisis. Many economists want to know this all over the world. Babajide Lance, and thank you very much for your message.
Ladily says
Yeah.
headlines sometimes appear to be born out of an intention to mislead people. Thank you guys for always digging into headlines. Thanks, Ladily.
Thank you. Yewole says, you're telling me chanting is stronger than bazooka, please?
No, Yewole, we clarified that. That wasn't what he intended.
Adenika says, the introduction of the ministry is one of the many brain drain. People will emigrate to places where they get benefits from their taxes. Very interesting. Deepo from Ikeja.
The tech environment is getting bigger and needs to be regulated, or else we'll be in a situation that will be almost out of control and we start screaming over the roof. We can see what's happening in social media environment. We need to do things right.
And Yinka says, Ugo, just brushing teeth. I entered the bus from Mount Tuto Oshodi. The dude was drinking liquor. I had to get down before my bus stopped.
I was going to mention
safety.
that. I don't know
It's
what's
just
going on
crazy.
with that awareness drive to take away, the selling of alcoholic drinks in the
Yes,
Yeah, in the
lots of
parks, yeah,
yes. I
and
hope
they're
that there's a-
pervasive. There,
yes,
it's
there
incredible.
was a drive to stop that.
Chika Agina from Marina says, on the assertion that the 3 states cannot survive without federal allocation is neither here nor there. The federal government cannot allocate all the resources of the state to itself in the name of exclusive list and yet expect the states to task its citizens to death. In the name of meeting its obligation, let the state control the resources within its boundaries. Special thanks to all of you who sent in messages. Femi, Magzorin, Judy, and Jay, we see your messages. And special thanks to Godre, who handled the stories. And
Yay.
special thank you too to Mr. C for putting a very strong effort to getting into the studio. Though couldn't work out. We thank you. Get to hear him again some other time. This is Freshly Pressed 981 coming to a close. Next is the Grapevine 981 at 8:15. Stay with us.
The headlines. The story.
Thank you.
Oh,
Bella.
Next time,
All right.
you send me an